Hey, it's DPJ, and we're going to talk about non-combat combat. It is not a mistype. It is non-combat combat. How to add some more action, some more drama, without being not only not being lethal to the characters, but allowing the less combat-oriented characters, the wizards and the clerics and rogues in the game, to engage in combat to allow them to shine, and then to have some of the characters that are combat heavy, your fighters, your rangers, maybe even some of your monks and barbarians, to engage in other things other than combat and still have an importance. So I've got about six. I might probably, while I start talking about this, I might insert another three or four in there. I'm not certain yet. And below, I'm going to insert a link to a video about escalation. I'm not going to repeat what was in the video because the video itself is excellent. And in short, the video talks about escalating a conflict where the players describing a scene in Lord of the Rings when all the party members in Lord of the Rings and Fellowship of the Ring are going down a set of stairs that are like broken, and they're being shot at with arrows by goblins in the caves of Mordor. I think that's it. Anyway, okay, non-combat combat. Let me get back to the point. These are ways to add more combat into your story without huge risks of your players dying and allowing them to basically grab dice, start rolling things, and maybe make something memorable. The first one and most common one is to do a brawl, a tavern brawl. A fight breaks out that is relatively non-lethal, and you basically stayed up front. It's a non-lethal game. Hey, you run out of hit points, you're fatigued or you're knocked out, you'll just wake up later on with a headache or something. And it's the barroom brawl where someone's like, hey, those orcs in that other town need to be slaughtered, and someone else is like, no, you're wrong. You can't have that attitude about them. You're just being a orc racist. And no, I'm not. And they're just having disagreement. And somebody picks up a bottle and throws it at the other guy. And somebody picks up a chair and they start fighting. And it's just basically a drunken brawl. All right. Nobody in the bar room wants to die, but they want to get their point across with a fist and kick somebody's ass. And you have a big old barroom brawl. You have people swinging off the chandeliers, jumping off of the balconies, sliding under tables, like I said, hitting somebody over the head with a bottle, throwing somebody through the front window of the tavern. Your classic cowboy barroom brawl. They can be fun. You can add some really comedic elements in there. Sliding the bottle down the barroom thing and hitting somebody in the head and all those kind of things, breaking the chair leg off and using it as a club, flipping people into a group of other people, leg tripping people, choking them out, all those kind of things. All right. Second one would be the hunt or the chase. And the hunt or chase could be, the simplest one is the player characters have to hunt or chase down someone or something. All right. The point is not to kill it or him or her. The point is to hunt them down, find it, and chase it. A good idea would be the players have to capture a Pegasus or a Griffin. They have to find a unicorn, which is damn near impossible. The players have to go up into a mountainous area, find a Griffin or a unicorn, and bring it back. Okay? So you have all kinds of climbing rolls, hunting rolls. They have to come up with a way to trap it so it's combative. It's non-lethal. They have to be able to trap it. They have to haul it back down. They may need supplies. They may have to construct a cage big enough and durable enough to hold it. All kinds of things without it being lethal. So how do characters not kill a creature and capture it? It's the hunt. The chase, similar, but a little bit different. So, for example, a big black bear comes into town. The mayor's like, oh no, we've got to get the bear out of town. Guys, I want you to chase this bear out of town. They have to section off parts of the city so that the bear, and it could be anything. It could be any kind of wild creature. It could even be a monster that is innocent. And the idea is not to kill it. The idea is to drive it somewhere or chase it somewhere. Okay, so you have to section off parts of the city streets so it can't get down alleyways. You may have to leave food out to draw it out because it's hiding somewhere. Maybe it's in the middle of the town square and you need to lead it away, kind of breadcrumbing it outside of town. There may be innocents that don't listen to anybody and they want to run across the street while the dangerous, I don't know, owl bear is trying to attack them and distracting you from trying to get this darn owl bear out of the town. Maybe it was created by a wizard, so now you have to get this creature, innocent as it is, out of town before you can actually go after the real culprit, which is the darn wizard who created the darn owl bear in the first place. The chase, okay? You've got all of movement things. Heck, if you include some parkour rules, you have players jumping and flipping over top of rooftops as they try to finagle this thing going around. You could have an archer purposefully not shooting it with arrows, but scaring it in one direction or another. The fighter or fighters and barbarians, the big beefy guys standing out in the open, drawing it to them, maybe having to withstand a couple of hits here and there just to draw its attention while someone uses a spell to knock it out. All these things, okay? Game masters can add in some difficulties. You're running through town, you're trying to go through crowds, there's people screaming and running in the other direction, so you need some difficulties to keep up with the creature and where it's going, that kind of stuff. The third non-combat combat would be the games. The competition, like an Olympic style games. Take a look at on ESPN, and sometimes they have strongman competitions where they have to chop through wood and lift up cars and move boulders and pull, tractor trailers and tanks with their teeth and all this other kind of stuff. But there's other games too where shot put and javelin throwing and archery and wrestling, and just think of like these think of everything in the Olympics and then cover everyone in medieval garb. Hey, you're down to a loincloth and that's it. You're in a sand pit. You've got to wrestle someone else. You're just standing there, the classic Robin Hood thing. Hey, you've got an archery contest. Go for it. Wonder Woman's origin. Everyone wears a mask. No one knows who's there. We're all sisters, but you're going to compete to see who gets to take that dude back to man's world, right? Okay. Competition games. Sometimes those competition games could be simple skill rolls. Okay, make 3 skill rolls with archery. So whoever gets the highest 3 rolls wins. But you can make it combat too, like with wrestling or with padded weapons, like training for gladiators. In the TV show Spartacus, great show. These guys, they drew blood from each other, punching and kicking each other. They fought with wooden swords and they had shields and stuff. That stuff, they're beating each other's ass, but they're not killing each other. They're just practicing. And it's basically non-combat combat, right? Fourth one would be the dream sequence. Pretty simple. It can be overused, but the dream sequence could be using stats. Take classic D&D. That your intelligence, your wisdom, and your charisma replace the exact stats of, say, strength, dex, and con. So the more intelligent, the less physical characters are now in a superior position than the more physical characters who have lower mental stats. This would allow some of the higher mental static characters who may not be able to do much in combat, but in a dream sequence they can. Now you can include a dream sequence. Let's say there's a sphinx protecting a ancient relic or something, and if you enter through the door, the sphinx says you will be challenged mentally by your worst nightmares. And when you go into it, now the game master's like, well, actually you guys are in a dream sequence, and so now you're fighting something mentally. And you can create all kind with a dream sequence. You can create damn near anything, including their worst fears. Of characters afraid of falling and afraid of heights, so they have to climb up this impossibly tall cliff, and they're hanging on the side of the cliff with their fingertips, and so they have to make rolls with their wisdom and intelligence to make it, as opposed to their strength and endurance. Okay. Same thing with, your classic fears: drowning, insects, snakes, things like that. Use their mental stats instead of their physical stats. They can have quote unquote hit points. Your hit points could be your highest mental stat, or it could be a combination of all your mental stats added together, and those are your mental hit points. And so that's how they, one character can get out of their dream sequence and go help another character who's stuck in their dream sequence. The fighter hanging off the side of the cliff is scared. So instead, the wizard gets out of his dream sequence about drowning, goes over to help reach down to help the fighter pull himself up off the cliff because he's scared. Anyway, that's an idea. All right, and the last one, I'm calling it Kertamen, or it could be Sertamen if you want to call it that. There's a game called Ars Magica, and Kertamen is, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but I'm pronouncing it the way I like, and that is a magical combat between spellcasters. And it's not specifically, I cast Magic Missile, they cast Charm Person, I cast a sleep spell. It is more the manipulation of raw magic, and both parties are in agreement to have this magical combat. It's not usually non-lethal and allows one to surpass the other. And again, this might be an all mental kind of combat, or use mental stats, or somehow they have to use their spell listing in a unique ways and impress judges if there are judges there looking at the duel, or the two mages want to see who's the best between both of them, and so they engage in Kertamen, and it is a magical style combat. The rules for it, I don't have any rules off the top of my head. I suppose I would use the same mental stats, or I would have a representation in between both of the mages, and how unique they use their spell listings against this representation between them would be it. So for example, let's say there's a small rabbit between them, and the player character has to go up against the evil mage, and the evil mage wants to know just how powerful they are. So the evil mage goes, well, I'm going to cast fire on it and kill the rabbit. And then the good, the player character mage is like, well, I'm going to stop his fire by casting mage armor on the rabbit. And then the evil mage is like, well, I will try to freeze the rabbit. And the character's like, well, I'm going to transform the rabbit into a armored turtle. And then the other person's like, well, I'm going to use mind control and use a charm person on the turtle. And then it's like, well, before he can control his mind, I'm going to place it to sleep so it's immune to it. Those kind of, I don't know. I'm just coming off the top of my head. But anyway, non-combat combat. Lastly, the other way to do, that I'm thinking of to do non-combat combat, would be to make traps in your dungeon. So you got your dungeon crawl, they're going through, you've got like pendulums with blades swinging back and forth. So you can give them armor classes and hit points and ability to hit, and the player characters have to fight, quote unquote, fight the pendulum swinging randomly, swinging back and forth. So there's like 4 pendulums swinging around the room and random swing back and forth, and maybe the rogue dodges out the way. The fighter wants to stand there and block one of the pendulums and hack at the long wooden arm with his sword. Maybe one of the mages wants to cast a lightning bolt spell to blast one of the wooden arms to knock another one of the pendulum blades out of the way. And so you can actually have a fight with something else. Now, would that be lethal? Of course it would. But it's also a way to have some combat without having to add yet one more creature into it. And lastly, as far as handling combat, I'm going to defer to the video that I'm going to place a link below, is use methods of escalation in combat. If you're afraid of killing the characters, have one creature show up. And if it's easy for them, have 2 more show up because they heard the first one die. And then have another one, and then maybe another 3 show up or something like that. you can actually escalate your combat if you're afraid that you're not sure what level of comfort you are and what level of ability your player characters have, as well as the fact that that adds a lot of tension to it. Hey, there's one lone goblin pissing in a corner. We cut his throat and leave him, and his three friends are like, "Hey, where's Grognard at?" And they come around the corner, and there's three goblins. Okay, take out the three goblins. Now the goblin party at their little fire is going, where the hell is everybody? So 8 of them stand up and go to look for their friends because they've heard some commotion. Start increasing, and that can build some tension. So anyway, a couple of ideas for non-combat combat. I thought some would spark while I started doing a video, and it hasn't yet, but I hope some of you guys have some really good ideas out there. I tend not to do too many follow-ups, but I think I will on this one, as well as another video I have on naked fighting. So anyway, create some non-combat combat. Try not to destroy your players before you get some of your great ideas out there too. Thanks, guys.